Oh, I brought me Mars up to the zoo for the show of the lion and the kangaroo. But all she wanted to see was the old cockatoo all inside the zoological gardens. Oh, trouble and strife is no lack, for trouble and sissy is in the jag. All you want to do is get into the Phoenix Park and view the zoological gardens. Oh, I went up there at the old park gate, and the policeman all upon his base. He was trying to make love to me darling Case outside the zoological gardens. I went up there on my honeymoon. She says, me dear, if you don't come soon, I'll have to get in with the dirty big hairy baboon inside the zoological gardens. No trouble and strife, this is no lack, for trouble and city is in the jag. All I want to do is get into the Phoenix Park and view the zoological gardens. Oh, she says to me darling Jack, I'd love a ride on the elephant's back. If you don't get with that, I give you such a smack all outside the zoological gardens. Oh, what's that? Then at 7, the bell did rock. She says, me dear, you ruined me frock. But I blocked her for one of the railway stock inside the zoological gardens. Oh, I brought me Miles up to the zoo to show her the lion and the kangaroo. There was he-males and she-males of each shade and hue inside the zoological gardens. No trouble and strife, it is no lack, for Dublin city is in the jag. All you want to do is get into the Phoenix Park and view the zoological gardens.
Hello, I'm John Coleman from ApocatastasisInstitute, an institute for the humanities and alternative college and high school here on New Milford, Connecticut, USA. The purpose of this broadcast is to step it up as we enter the spring semester in the year of grace 20 and 26. I thought to order this presentation along the various communities whom we serve at ApocatastasisInstitute. So we'll remind ourselves of those momentarily. And also to indicate various changes, upgrades, and developments of your institute as we move towards a physical campus. That is where my mind is laser beam focused. I'm recording this at the very start of the spring semester. In fact, on the feast in these United States of Epiphany. And so that means we're on the westerning end of the Christmas holiday, the very, very westerning end. Tomorrow is the first day of classes proper. And what have I been up to? Well, it is concerning that campus, and stay tuned. But first things first, we want to orient ourselves. We want principles. We want to remind ourselves, for all you Jesuits, of the principle and foundation. You can never do this too much in your own lives, personally, in your vocations, and the different things you love and hate. You must always remind yourself of these things. And in your marriages and in your religious life and in your work vocations, it is always important, as the Bible says, to go back to your first love. If you're me and you have the cut of my jib, it's, as I indicate, also worthwhile going back to why you hate certain things as well. And uh, part of the overall telos of apocatastasis is, I suppose, coming to this. Well, I won't say bipolar in any sort of clinical sense, but this meaningful recapturing of life in the most ethereal orientation as we move towards specifics. In this moment here in these United States, and I think through much of the Western world, there is a great grayness. There is a great middling. There's a great lukewarmness to life. As of this broadcast, and I should think well into the future, you ought to be able to access on Substack an essay by Mr. Ted Gioia, who is a musical critic by the look of most of his articles, but he put out a piece lately that is apropos to this point. And it is to the effect titled "The Return of the Weirdo." 20 and 26, the return of the weirdo. It was a dear prayer for the return of weirdness, of rocking the boat, of standing out. And one of the astute observations this astute man made in that article, The Return of the Weirdo, is that all the cars that we see are silver, like mine, and white and black. They don't jump out. Now that I've said this, go into your town and pay attention. Go down the road and pay attention. You're going to see this. It is very true. Nobody, or next to nobody, is driving an automobile that jumps out in colors. The clothing doesn't jump out. It's just sloppy. I saw a woman wearing jammies, pajama pants, I think people call them PJs, yeah? PJs. I saw this woman, otherwise attractive as young women are, in jammies. What the hell was going on? People are dressing like slobs. I saw a grown man, must have been 50 years old, dressed like a 12-year-old boy in the middle of January, no less. Anyway, no one wears hats anymore. I think I'm the very last man on the earth who rolls up my cuffs on my trousers. I'm probably the last man that still wears trousers, but anyway. The point is, the cars are a matte color, M-A-T-T-E. The buildings, the billboards, the franchises are just as much. Even McDonald's, which used to be red and yellow. Even McDonald's has gone in for this look, certainly Starbucks and all of this, right? Nobody wants to rock the boat. At Apocatastasis, we want to rock the boat. We want this hot or cold, to reprise my initial comments. We want this feeling. We want to feel life. The whole purpose of Apocatastasis, now we move towards the specific work of this grand institute. The whole purpose of Apocatastasis is personal empowerment and therefore social growth, cultural renewal. Right? If you raise up generations of people who know their worth, how precious is their culture, how precious are their families and their relations and their history and their language, right? If you do this, this necessarily will spill over into larger social combinations. It is my personal belief that various works that people employ themselves for, whether that's political, that seems to be very popular, particularly in a partisan sense these days, or economical, religious, and other avocations, whatever, these things don't last and they fall apart. And the reason they fall apart is culture. Social bonds have greatly atrophied. Life has been represented quite literally, if not on a cave wall like Plato, on a shiny screen. And there's a certain disassociation of individuals with real life and a tremendous exaggeration of individuality, a very shallow individuality, Individuality only really matters if the person is deep. And alas and alack, our educational system heretofore is not producing such souls. So the general and overall telos of apokatastasis, once again, is personal empowerment and enrichment, and that hoping to spill over especially into cultural enrichment. Only if you have, only if we have, only if I have a rich culture, meaning personal bonds, spirituality. If you're an atheist, then a profound conviction of that. Here's a good example of the mauve and matte and lukewarm hour that we're at. All right. It is not people of some religious confession or other and atheists. That would actually be very good, because in each instance, it means that people have convictions. No, what are we all now? We're all nuns. Are we nuns with whipples and habits? No. We're NONES. We're nuns. We don't have any religion. We have no spirituality. Right? You can put that in the same category as the silver, black and white cars, gray cars, the buildings which don't jump out at you, the clothing which is sloppy if it's anything. Right? Put the nuns in that category of just another cultural artifact that something is profoundly disordered. It would be good if someone's a convicted and convinced, agnostic, good. Atheist, good. Muslim, good. Jew, good. Okay. Christian, Buddhist man, Hindu man, whatever. Good. You're a man of convictions, but that's not what we're making. And we're not making men of conviction in their religious outlook. We're making nuns, and we're not making dressers with pizzazz, or making sloppy people who wear colors that don't rock the boat. We're not making good drivers, that's for certain, but we are certainly making drivers that have a consciousness not to rock the boat. They have gray colored cars, silver colored cars, and so forth with the buildings, and so forth with our thinking, and so forth, I'm afraid, with our hearts. The purpose of apokatastasis is indeed to step it up, to recapture meaning, exuberance in life, one way or another, love and hate. I used those bipolarities earlier. Okay, there we are. So now we move to this glorious website. I want to check the tech as always, check the calming background music. If I'm not calm, at least the music will be. Okay, so here is our beautiful website. If you want to make Mr. Coleman smile and make his day, just spend as much time as possible on this site and check out all of the subsites which need upgrading, and that will happen. As I say, I've been very busy this Christmas break with something I'll announce soon enough. But in any case, we do have at Apokatastasis, towards our telos of personal and cultural restoration, that's what the word Apokatastasis means in Greek, towards that telos, we have to be organized. You can't just have good ideas. You have to have organization. One may argue that the people who believe they run this world have bad ideas, and they have organization, and that's why they run this world. They're disciplined. A lot of people, if you haven't noticed, a lot of people with very good ideas are profoundly disorganized in their personal life, let alone their, shall we say, social consciousness, which seems to not exist whatsoever. You need both, right? You need good ideas, holy ideas, wholesome ideas, enriching ideas, exuberant ideas, and you need discipline. And for discipline, you need organization. So, apokatastasis serves in hierarchical order the following communities: the dead generations past, being primarily a school that is through academic maturity and sobriety. When it comes to the ideas of the past and the peoples of the past, there's of course a very modern chauvinism that presumes that we now, the living, know better than our parents, our grandparents, much less our sires 1,000 years past. We are the inheritors, and I speak particularly of scholars and students, but all of us who mean to enrich our culture, we are the inheritors of the past. One of the reasons, I don't care you are left wing, right wing, communist man, capitalist man, Jewish man with a shovel digging tunnels in Queens, swinging chickens over your head, Muslim man making a bomb, Christian man, I don't know, typing, wasting your life on a forum. I don't know what the Christians are up to. Hindu man swimming in the Ganges. One of the things the lot of us have lost, atheist man, a convicted agnostic man, whatever, no nuns. Nuns can't understand what I'm talking about. But people of conviction, whatever the conviction is, one of the things we've lost, whatever our worldview is the idea of the inheritance of the past. Now, part of that actually would be literally a semester-long class into the disruptions of the 20th century, not the least of which were tremendous military conflagrations, but other things as well, having to do with living patterns changing and so forth. But what was, well, I won't say fatally, but near fatally disrupted was cultural transmission in the last century and a half. And you can bet your bippy that's going to continue with the people who think they run this world. Cultural transmission. We, the first group of people at Apocatastastis whom we serve, are the dead generations past. This is not just a philosophical recap. So in this semester, in this spring semester of 20 and 26, what does that mean? If you're a praying person, we're going to pray for the dead more. We're going to visit cemeteries. In the classroom, we're going to take our subjects and our ideas more seriously. We will be moving towards a campus. As long as I have breath in me and energy in me and organization, I will be working towards this. What happens, happens. That will largely depend on yourself and the people who rally around this work. In time, I do see this ministry towards the dead to have applications beyond that, including literally burying the dead. You don't know this, maybe you do. A lot of white trash families in America will often have the funeral home usually cremate their relations, and then they'll head for the hills. They'll skip town. And so every funeral home in this country has a closet. And every funeral home in this country has a closet full of abandoned remains. If you don't think that we have a cultural breakdown, I adduce that point. So when we get our campus, perhaps there'll be a cemetery on our campus. There certainly will be a chapel on our campus. We will have relics in that chapel. And I'll elaborate more on all of these points in the semester ahead. But towards the dead generations past, intellectually, that will even mean more rigor, more sobriety, more interest in the discussions of our grand sirs. Physically, on our campus, this will have applications in reality, in the true meaning of that word, in the physical sense. Okay, the next generation whom we serve at Apocatastastis are our teachers, and this listing is chronological, as I say. Apocatastastis is a harbor for teachers. Whether those are teachers like myself that have been run from pillar to post out of, say, respectable academe, there you go, or whether that's just for young people in particular who are trying to get their feet under themselves and to build up their careers and so forth. We're a harbor there, and for all sorts in between. And I will announce this now, but it applies to the whole lot of us, including our dead generations past. Just a reminder here, anyone can say whatever the hell they want at Apocatastastis. They can do whatever they want at this school. There is a very rigorous and thorough civil bureaucracy which will address any criminality, but beyond that, beyond murder or whatever, I happen to be watching a lot of this true crime. I've graduated from predator busting obsessions to the real juicy murder interrogations. There's the whole little genre online, and I can't peel away from it. But in any case, barring crimes, anyone at Apocatastastis can do and say whatever they want. Maybe they can even say Apocatastastis out loud 10 times fast. In any case, back to the teachers. Uh, we are a safe harbor, but not just intellectually, but also, and this is where we're all of us going to need to mature towards, to the subsequent groups. The dead are off the hook and the teachers are off the hook. But subsequently, the remaining two communities have to pony up money. Part of this safe haven of Apocatastasis's, and we will be moving as much as resources allow. Stay tuned to the end of this presentation towards this point, but of material compensation. Teachers are paid garbage in this country because, and I'm speaking from America, as I've indicated, because Americans have a very poor appraisal of the mind at present. People pray, okay, they pray, I don't know what they pray to, the money man, the stock jobber. They pay for what they care about. People pay for their Netflix. I'm doing this 20 years. This is my 20th year teaching. And for some of you watching this for your time in the classroom, that's nothing, right? I'm just starting out. But I have been doing this this year, 20 years. And I've noticed this. The white trash Americans will pay for their Netflix. They'll pay for their bags of chips, their fags, their Marlboros, whatever. They'll pay for their beer. They'll pay for their latte, or mat is the color, but they'll pay for their lattes and their burgers and their landlords, and they'll pay for their interest on their credit cards, and they'll pay for their Amazon. But they will not pay for teachers. And the reason is this people is not a people of knowledge. And if we do our job here at Apocatastasis's, right, as best we can in the little world that we have the ear of, then this will change. But nevertheless, this haven for teachers will be material, must be material. People pay for what they value. People pay for all sorts of vices, so-called. People pay for this and that and the other. They pay for their gray cars and their sloppy flannel jammies they wear to Aldi's, whatever. Maybe they'll pay, maybe, and part of that is the teacher needs to recover the sense of respect of our vocation, of intellectual journeying. Part of the crises, I mean, if Apocatastasis's means restoration, well, part of the fall of academe has been the fact that we have bellied up to commerce. We've bellied up to slogans. We've bellied up to the low mental horizon of the people that we're around. We have to take ourselves more seriously. So yeah, I can complain and call the people around me, as I believe, white trash, black trash, Chinaman trash, whatever. Okay, they're low spirits, they're low souls. And I can tell you, I do not have enough. I do not have enough fingers and toes to tell you this sort of behavior. They all have doggies. They all have their Netflix and their internet and so forth, right? But they never have money. They never, ever have money for their teachers. Right? I can complain about that, and I will continue to complain against such behavior. But also, as teachers, we need to take ourselves more seriously and start demanding a bit more. So that requires growing a spine and other appendages. In any case, concretely, I will indicate where we're going with that teacher enrichment materially towards the end here. So the next group that we mean to serve at Apocatastasis's, all of which towards personal and cultural enrichment, are our students. It is very popular now to say, while the teacher serves the students. No. This is nonsense. This is like saying parents serve their children. The king serves his subjects. This is not the case, right? The insanity, I suppose, the insanity of teachers serving their students is the insanity of a democracy, right? Where the state works for me. No, the state doesn't work for you. No. And neither do you work for the state, but and neither do the children work for the parents. But this, again, gets to the cultural crises. And by the way, one of the projects, besides what I've alluded to thus far, and my obsession with murder interrogation videos, is also producing an essay, now at 120 pages, on piety. Again, towards cultural enrichment, towards piety. Piety does not have a religious connotation primarily, and my essay is not primarily religious. It is only secondarily such. It is primarily a focus on bonds between generations. That's piety. Only with that consciousness is there a larger spiritual consciousness. Anyway, the teacher does not serve the student, nor does the student serve the teacher. And the reason we're having these misunderstandings is because we've lost piety. Stay tuned for the essay that should be out, as will a great deal of specifics in terms of our schedule soon enough. And it will be published. All these schedules. I give myself to the guts of January to get all this stuff squared away. In any case, towards our students, one of the things that became very evident last semester, the autumn of 20 and 25, was the popularity of short courses. So in terms of stepping it up, you'll keep an eye out for a lot of, not a lot, but for our capacity, a lot of short courses. So we're going to continue probably till the final trumpet blast. We'll continue with the traditional 16-week semesters and all of this. But we'll have a lot more flexible courses. That was well responded to, especially with our adult learners. So keep an eye out for that. And then finally, towards the last group whom we serve, and keep in mind, our groups, we'll recap, are the dead generations past, teachers, students, and now our fourth community, the general public. All of us, living and dead, will and are working towards enriching our culture, because all of the political, economical, social stuff we're constantly going on about, all the problems, all of this goes back to culture. If we do not get culture, we have nothing, which is why all of our efforts, left man, right man, fascist man, monarchist man, whatever, politically, religiously, whatever, why do all of our efforts drift away? They never obtain, right? One of the things, if you're at all familiar with my writings in essays and books and my productions here, audio-visually, one of the things that haunts me is 11 years I wasted in Ridgefield at a certain school there. And the school fell apart. And I constantly think, I wrote a whole book on this, and I'm constantly thinking, this is the I suppose, counterexample to Apocatastastis. Why did that happen? You had many more people than Apocatastastis involved in that school. You had way more money. They were not a rich school, though it would be in Ridgefield. But they certainly had 100 times more material wealth to do things with than we've ever had here at Apocatastastis. They had a community they served, and therefore they had the ear of people in a way that I've never enjoyed. And the whole thing fell apart. Why did it fall apart? And why will it? And they've since rebooted the high school. It will fall apart in 10 years' time, again and again and again. And then we see it with the homeschool co-ops, and we see it with all sorts of things, with political movements and religious movements. They always fall apart. Well, part of that's a natural entropy, what the Christians call original sin in the West. Part of that, it's human nature, whatever. But part of that, I believe this is the prevailing reality, is a cultural poverty, right? We've lost culture. That's why we focus so much on cultural enrichment at Apocatastastis. So our final group indeed are the general public. And we have many things coming down the pike for that, including our well-received open events series, our podcasts, and additional things, our publications, our various health outreaches, including with LCN and our different shows pursuant thereto. So those are briefly what we're looking at. Now, I alluded a couple of times already to certain concrete developments towards the obtaining of a campus. To do that properly, a few things need to be in place. So now we move into, we'll say, part 2 of this presentation. And immediately, and this is what I have spent my Christmas break setting up, has to be financial points. And so we've revamped from head to toe the financial structuring or scaffolding around Apocatastasisi. So heretofore, we've enjoyed the very generous donation of time that certain people were putting into the books and so forth at Apocatastasisi's. But we did have to step it up and just to tighten things up and conclude that generosity with great gratitude. And so we're back using PayPal and Zelle, and there will be a much quicker turnaround with donations, with book inquiries, and various things. If you, like myself, insist on using cash as much as possible, get in touch with me. I will say when it comes to events, especially our hikes and so forth with LCN, I will say that you need to have a rapport with me personally before that, because I've been left high and dry by people way too often on the account of protesting that they only use cash and can I just pay cash, and then people not showing up. And in fact, I'm owed quite a bit of money from people who came to our naturist events a couple of years ago in New York City. And so anyway, hey, we're here to build culture, and part of that is interpersonal responsibility and so forth. So when you prove that you're a reliable person, doesn't take much, but I'm constantly paying attention to people, then you can pay cash. Otherwise, you can pay cash up front or use these digital apps and so forth. So we have this. Also, we have locals set up. I'll be talking about all of this stuff much more in the month ahead. We have locals set up that's going to be a whole other outlet towards new learners and more flexibility with our adult learners. Locals, there'll be other donation things, buy me a coffee, also ticketing with events, all sorts of events, or open events, lectures, for example. We're going to have that through one of these apps and things. So all of that's upgrading, thanks be to God. After that, and this is what's going to occupy, if the banking behind the scenes stuff and the stuff with all these apps and whatever took up my December, my January will be setting up a familiarity, a working familiarity with the stock market. The reality is, I've already griped about the stinginess of people who nominally support alternative modalities of education. I'll probably revisit that theme 100,000 times. But also the reality is schools, especially colleges, are not run by tuition primarily. Tuition is important, but it is not the primary workhorse of growing institutions of the size that Apocatastasis's means to obtain. That's going to have to be done through the stock market. Now, whether that's with the banking system, the stock market, or eventually in between a certain legal framework, all of this raises a lot of philosophical and spiritual points, which I will address in an essay separate from the piety essay. And so you can keep an eye out for that. It will not nearly be as long. It will be much more to the point. But I'm aware of the severe moral problems of banking, being involved in the banking system, having things like PayPal, Zelle, whatever, to say nothing of the stock market. So I will be addressing that. I'm however perturbed you are about those things, I'm more perturbed, not to swing dick, but there we are. But in any case, I will be familiarizing myself with things like Robinhood and different apps. Once we get a certain stride in that department, I will be making an appeal for investors in Apocatastasis. That means you. I don't mean Warren Buffett, George Soros, God help us. No, the Koch brothers or whatever. But you, as an investor, not a donor, an investor in this work with dividends, frankly. We'll talk about that. After that, we move to bonds, right? Long-term. Part of an institute for the humanities is having an institutional vision of decades and centuries. So once the immediate income uh, tribulation is seen to, and we get to a point where we don't have to wait for, like Tarzan or whatever, swinging in, to whatever student just happened to watch us, and thanks be to God enrolled in our course. Now we have a quick infusion of cash to do X, Y, and Z. Once we have something much more stable, say what you will of the stock market, it's volatile, but it's volatile within a conservative framework. Necessarily, stocks are conservative. I don't mean this politically or factionally, but they're conservative by nature. You only have a stock market if you're assuming social stability. So once we have our own financial stability and dependable dividends coming in, then we move to bonds, which are of a decade vision, right? You have 5, 10, 15, 20-year bonds. Then when we have that settled, then we're going to have to address pensions at Apocatastasis, right? We're here to replace the system that's crashing, right? The mainstream educational system's crashing. You maybe don't think about that. I don't know. I mean, we have a very wide base of support, thanks be to God. But most people, I don't think, are quite in the weeds as to what educational institutions entail. And part of that means having stable pension systems. So bonds, stocks, bonds, pensions, that's, behind the scenes where I'm working on very concretely, because we're not going to attract talented people if we cannot compensate them in a talented fashion, shall we say, or an exuberant fashion. And that's not a mercenary observation whatsoever. Getting back to earlier points, a lot of people with good ideas, a shotgun, scatterbrained set of good ideas, don't have this sort of organizational mind. The only way we instantiate, verbalize, and I don't mean speak, but literally verb, act, realize in the Latin sense of that word, concretize, physicalize our good ideas, is to have this sort of institutional mind. So there we are with that. Once that is up and running, right, we have regular income through our stock portfolio. Once we have established, although we won't necessarily realize the maturation of the bonds, we can do this before the maturation of the bonds, and certainly the pension stuff. Once we have a stable income from tuition, but also from more stably the stocks, then we move towards property acquisition. I've already alluded to the treatment of the legal reality of this, because I've said this and I stand on this. The day you see Apocatastasis legalized is the day Apocatastasis is dead. If you forgot that, I've just reminded you. I didn't have to do that. There are profound spiritual and philosophical problems and delicts with the legal system and legal personhood. But even monasteries have had to deal with this reality, and so will I. When you see Apocatastasis, especially in our physical work on the campus going forward, when you see this, you probably should take the mind of a monastery. In all of these points that I've laid out in the previous, the previous 40 minutes, in all of these points, I will be addressing in greater depth going forward. What will a physical plant look like? In fact, on this website with Professor Myers, we actually talked about the 4 insanities. If we have 4 communities at Apocatastasis, you might as well have 4 insanities. You can check that out here. We have another one coming up. We're going to have a chapel on the campus. We need to start dreaming here, talking about what we're building, structurally setting the footing for that, financially and legally. And so a lot of my talk going forward is going to be in that neck of the woods. You can find out how to support us right now by looking at this PDF, ways to support our growth. You can download that now and start verbing it now. If you believe in this project, well, as I say, we'll especially let the dead generations past off the hook. They've done their bit. The teachers are doing their bit. But if you are from amongst our students or the general public, help us out. If you believe this work, it's time to pony up money, time, outlay of various things, getting the word out about this. I thank those of you who have done this heretofore. I will be talking about this and thanking you in the future as well. We have a lot to do. I want to update the merch. I have to update this site, as I indicated. There's a lot to do. We have only so many hands on deck. I want to thank the staff, especially for growing out this work and for their interest in this work. And stay tuned. There's a lot coming down. This is very heavy work. It's very intense work. Personally speaking, and just as vocationally speaking, what teachers do, if they're doing it well, is to read well, to write well, and to talk well, and to convey ideas. Right? If a teacher is doing their job, they are doing those things. It happens, if you're me, and I think if you're most people given to those vocations, it happens that those things, reading, thinking, writing, speaking, I'll add thinking in there, of course, take a lot of time. They take a lot of time. And so in the nitty gritty, kind of in the behind the scenes, what takes up my day besides those things is doing all of this administrative stuff. And that takes up a lot of time. And so there's only so many hours in the day. We do, thanks be to God, our staff is growing. Our collaborators, that section of our staff is growing in particular. Thanks be to God, our student body was the biggest that it's yet been. With all the collaborator classes, it was well over 20. Probably less than 25, but over 20, which is the greatest enrollment we've had thus far. Thanks be to God. Thanks be to you as well. But nevertheless, who puts out these videos, who does the interviews, who does the scheduling, who does the financial stuff. These are much smaller in number. And so, hey, we're working with what we have, working with your help and your graciousness, and we plow ahead. We plow ahead towards a campus. We plow ahead towards our 4 communities, the dead generations past, our teachers, our students, the general public, ultimately always reorienting ourselves. Ultimately, we are always plowing ahead towards personal growth, leading towards cultural enrichment. That is our telos. That is our North Star. And we will never bend or break or bow from that goal. Because until that goal is established, until culture is enriched, nothing else matters. Your religions, your politics, your social interests, your personal, nothing matters. If your culture is impoverished like soil, nothing can grow from it. And that's why everything in the mentioned sectors never obtains. I think back again to Ridgefield. Why did Ridgefield fall? As far as I'm concerned, religiously, politically, in so many ways, sociologically, they were tops. And yet it fell apart. The high school fell apart because of this very observation. The culture wasn't there. There is where our fight is. More specifically, there is where our farming is. All right. Thank you very much for your attention here. I look forward this semester, this spring, a spring semester. We have more snow than we have flowers, but I look forward this snowy spring semester to stepping it up with you and marching towards those goals, always keeping our telos in mind. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in class.